Hello, travelers. Welcome to Oceans Week at Reach the World. My name is Tim, and for over 20 years, Reach the World has inspired youth to become curious, confident, and compassionate global citizens. This week, in partnership with the Explorers Club and in collaboration with ocean advocates around the world, we're sharing kid-friendly stories of ocean exploration, conservation, and wonder with members of our global community. You can find a complete calendar of live stream events and much more at athome.reachtheworld.org. Today, Reach the World is excited to welcome Fabien Cousteau and Elisabeth Jacobi. Fabien Cousteau is an aquanaut, an explorer, an environmental advocate, and the founder of the Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center. He learned how to scuba dive on his 4th birthday. Can you imagine? Elisabeth Jacobi is an educator, an advocate for the restoration of marine ecosystems, and a project manager at the Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center. And together, Fabien and Elisabeth are here today to talk about sea turtles and what we can do to protect these incredible ocean creatures. We're also joined today by on-camera students who are eager to ask their questions to Fabien and Elisabeth. If you're watching via the live stream, please use the YouTube chat bar to let us know where you're watching from and what grade you're in. You can also share your questions for Fabien and Elisabeth in the YouTube chat bar, and we'll get to as many questions as we can in the next 45 minutes or so. All right, it's time to dive into the topic of sea turtle conservation. Fabien Cousteau and Elisabeth Jacobi, welcome to Reach the World.
Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, this is such an amazing platform. And I know everyone's a little bit zoomed out and everything. And, you know, I want to lend my heart out to you all for sticking around and doing one more Zoom with a couple of more adults here. But it's an amazing thing. It's one of my favorite dives, is to be able to dive into conversations with young people such as yourselves, because you guys are like my batteries, right? You guys have like that unbridled enthusiasm and crazy ideas and awesome questions. And for me, that really makes my day. So it really, I got to thank you all for being here today. My name is Fabien Cousteau. I'm, as Tim had mentioned, I'm a 3rd-generation ocean explorer. I'm an aquanaut too, and I don't know if you know what an aquanaut is. It's like an astronaut underwater, and it's slightly different than a scuba diver, because if you become an aquanaut, you essentially have to give up being on land to live and work underwater for a long period of time. So maybe some of you one day will become aquanauts, and that's a topic for maybe another day, unless you have some questions for me about that. But I really wanted to share today something very special to us at the Ocean Learning Center, which is a nonprofit platform that I created a few years ago, so that we could do all sorts of fun activities with people around the world, with communities around the world, and most especially with young people around the world. So if you'll allow me a few minutes, I will share with you my screen, and we'll dive into one of the projects, which is about sea turtles. As a matter of fact, if you're very observant, and although my fat head is in the way, you might see in the back of me, my background screen, a sea turtle swimming by. And I don't know if during this conversation, maybe towards the end, I'll ask you if you think it's a male or female sea turtle. So that's not the trick slide though. So let's dive into my screen, and I will share with you a few interesting images of our sea turtle program. Here we go. All right. So I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see this? It says Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center Sea Turtles. Everything's good? All right, good. You always have to check with technology. I'm a huge technology buff, but you know, whenever things can go wrong, they will. So I just wanted to check with you all. So the Ocean Learning Center, the Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center, has different programs from mangrove restoration and coral restoration. We have a big project called Proteus, which has to do with aquanauts actually. But we also have a really awesome sea turtle program that started in Nicaragua. Started in El Salvador and now has gone to Nicaragua. And whoops, I guess it doesn't want to let me go forward. There we go. And so I will minimize you guys so I can actually see what it says. And so it's basically what you think of a sea turtle program, right? It's people taking care of sea turtles. Well, in El Salvador, we partnered with some local people, some fishermen on the coastline to be able to try and help sea turtles. Now, why would we do that? Well, because sea turtles in Central America, the eggs of the sea turtles have been collected for many, many, many decades, many years, many generations, and sold on the market so that they could provide income for those people. But unfortunately, that has created a bit of a problem. Fewer and fewer adult sea turtles were coming back to those beaches. Now, why is that? Well, because the baby sea turtles, of course, grow into adult sea turtles. And over the time, the fishermen were thinking that the sea turtles were going somewhere else. Unfortunately, because they were collecting too many eggs, there just weren't enough baby sea turtles turning into the adults to come back and nest season after season after season. So we partnered with them to teach them a little bit about this life cycle of sea turtles and to make them the heroes of sea turtle restoration. So we tried to address what their real needs are, the human beings, right, to be able to provide for their families, all while protecting the sea turtles. And the result of that was that they became the local sea turtle heroes. In 3 years, they were able to collect over 750,000 sea turtle eggs, which I'll show you in a moment. And they were able to release over 680,000 baby sea turtles back into the ocean just in those 3 years. And so that to me is a huge story of success, not only for the people that depend on their local ecosystem, but also for the sea turtles who are now starting to come back as adult sea turtles to nest. And I see that every time. There we go. And so it became something very exciting to me because who doesn't love a baby sea turtle, of course, but we're starting to look at sea turtles around the world. There are seven species of sea turtles, of which 6 are endangered, unfortunately. And just to let you know that when you see a baby sea turtle, for it to grow to adulthood is a very, very difficult task. A lot of challenges are ahead of it. First of all, there are domestic predators, so cats and dogs and rats and things like that that dig up the nests. Of course, there's weather that sometimes affects the sea turtle nest, and human beings, of course, who go and collect those sea turtles, the sea turtle eggs, and either eat them or sell them on the black market, or sometimes accidentally step on those nests. So there are a lot of threats there. Of course, there's weather patterns and things like that that are natural threats as well. And so for a baby sea turtle to become an adult is a very difficult obstacle. And if you can see, I don't know if you can see my screen very well, but basically when you see an adult sea turtle, it ran the gauntlet of all those risks. And 1 in 1,000 baby sea turtles actually makes it to become an adult. That's how difficult it is. Additionally to this, we've got now the modern day threats. And I'm sure all of you have probably heard of things like plastic pollution and all sorts of other things that we're unfortunately doing to our aquatic ecosystem. Now imagine, for example, that this planet is a closed loop system. Closed loop system means like everything is recirculating, right? And that's exactly what it is. So there is no such thing as throwing something away because there's no away. And so when you throw something in the garbage or someone throws something improperly, most of it or much of it ends up in the ocean. And with plastic pollution, plastic bags most notoriously, but many other plastic things, unfortunately, they go and get eaten oftentimes by animals like sea turtles. Now, sea turtles play an integral role in our ocean. Our ocean represents 99% of our world's living space and 95% of that biodiversity that we love to think of on our planet, you know, lions and tigers and bears and sea turtles. Most of those animals, not the land ones, But most of those animals that are in existence, that share our space on this planet, live in the ocean. And the role of the sea turtle itself, the sea turtle is like the gardeners of the coral reefs, right? They'll go down and they'll scour the coral reefs. They'll munch on sponges. They'll collect hitchhikers on their shells. And when they go from one coral reef to another, those little hitchhikers will go into other places and go visit their friends and eventually repopulate those areas. So sea turtles perform a lot of roles in the world, and they're pretty amazing creatures. They're like dinosaurs. They've lived on this planet longer than dinosaurs. Now, a few years ago, actually a few decades ago, I hate to say a few years ago to this young audience, but a few decades ago, unfortunately, unfortunately for me, but I got to get a chance to really start looking at sea turtles and being able to be part of restoration activities. And I really fell in love with the idea of connecting people and young people with those sea turtles. And I mentioned earlier the fishermen of communities such as places like El Salvador and Florida and Nicaragua and other places in the world. And for me growing up, when I was your age, I wasn't the best student, I must say, but I had amazing teachers when I went off on expedition. And when we went off in the field, that experiential learning and being able to be hands-on in the field, being able to really see those sea turtles, being able to learn from experts that could teach me in the field while the action is going on and everything else, really enriched my experience and by default made me really excited about sea turtles. And so for the sea turtle program for us in Nicaragua and El Salvador, it was important for me to do the same thing or offer the same kind of thing to young people so that they could learn from their parents and grandparents, all the things that those people had already learned in the field from collecting those sea turtle eggs. And we enriched that experience by giving them a little bit of science and the life cycle of a sea turtle and all those things that actually were the parts that were missing so that those communities could make better decisions in their lives about sea turtles. And so it allowed for us to engage those communities and have them become the shepherds, if you will, of those sea turtle programs. We help them build sea turtle pens and make quadrants, as you can see in here, and collect those sea turtle eggs from the beaches and bring them into these protected areas so that we could learn a little bit more about the hatching rates and the sand temperatures and all these other things that actually make sea turtles, including the fact that a little bit of a temperature variation in that sand changes the fact of whether a sea turtle is a male or a female. How cool is that? I didn't know that before these programs. And so with all these little tidbits of information, we're able to better predict and better manage the hatching rate of those sea turtles. Now here is an interesting slide. All these amazing young people handling turtles. But what's different about this particular slide? I'll let you think about this, but take a good look at this slide and I'll see if Elisabeth can pick this out too, because this is the trick slide right here. All right, let's go on from this slide. Now, sea turtles are pretty awesome. And, you know, the average clutch or sea turtle nest encompasses about 100 to 120 eggs. And a female sea turtle lays 1 to 3 nests every other year. And so those are very general numbers. And of course, it varies and changes per species. But I just wanted to let you know that when we do these sea turtle restoration programs, there are a lot of baby sea turtles that come out. Now, let me show you a little bit about that challenge that I was talking to you about when that little baby sea turtle crawls out of the nest and goes marching into that oceanic frontier, its home for the rest of its life. Here we go. Now, this is just a very short video to show you what a little baby sea turtle has to deal with just to get back into the ocean. Its little tiny body is trying to make it from its sand to getting in the ocean, and it's getting battered. Boom. And it's getting rolled around in the sand, and it's getting thrown back and forth, trying to get into the ocean. It's a real struggle, and that's just the beginning of its lifespan. And that's just a part right now. You know, the sea turtle baby hatches at dusk or in the night, so they can try to get to the ocean front before any predators on land, like seagulls and things, eat it. And so finally, when it gets to a point and the ocean sweeps it into the big oceanic frontier, the sea turtle starts the rest of its life, and it swims sometimes tens or dozens or sometimes even 100 miles out to seagrass and sargassum to try and hide under it so that it could start growing out into an adolescent and then eventually an adult sea turtle. And all the while it's munching on little bits and pieces of food, which I'll let Elisabeth expand on in a second. But in Nicaragua, what we were able to do is get people, and mostly mothers and daughters, to be part of the sea turtle program. And just in 3 months, we were able to release over 6,000 baby sea turtles. And just in one day, we had a really crazy day this one time where all these nests were hatching at once, and they released over 2,000 baby sea turtles in one day. So that's pretty neat. And this is all in areas where we call it a 0% recruitment rate. All that means is that for years and years and years, there were no baby sea turtles coming from back into the ocean from those beaches because people were just taking too many sea turtle eggs. So imagine how much of a positive impact that will have in the years to come, so that those mother turtles come back onto the beach and start laying more nests. And hopefully in 10, 20, 30 years, when you all are my age, you'll be able to see a lot of female sea turtles on those beaches laying eggs, and we'll be happy, hopefully, that this was a huge success. Now I'm passing the mic over to Elisabeth, who will tell you a little bit more about the differences between turtles, tortoises, and sea turtles. So take it away, Liz.
Hi, guys. So thanks again for joining us here today. Just really quick, so that you see the difference a bit between sea turtles, freshwater aquatic turtles, and tortoises. And each of these, focus on the legs. Okay, so with the legs, when you have tortoises, they're kind of like big dinosaur legs. They move around on land, and they're big and chunky, and those are super slow. But they're also very strong with those legs. Whereas our freshwater aquatic turtles, they have webbed feet. So they can swim through the water. And then you also have land turtles, like the box turtle that's pictured there, that crawls around on land. They can swim. Box turtles can swim, but they're not very good swimmers. You don't want to put them in water if you do find them. Only those that have webbed feet can swim. But with sea turtles, if you look at that image there, they're the only ones that actually have flippers. So that's how you can always tell a sea turtle from a freshwater or aquatic turtle or a tortoise. Okay. Now, we wanted to go through some of the different turtles that we find in Nicaragua and highlight those that we have been collecting eggs from. As Fabien mentioned, there are so many threats to these turtles. This here pictured is the olive Ridley turtle. This is the main species that we've been collecting eggs from. Now, as we just discussed, when you're looking at it, there are so many threats to those baby sea turtles once they hatch. You saw that one little baby that was working to get out to the ocean on that nice flat beach. But another threat to them, besides the predators and everything that are going on, are just obstacles in the sand itself. This is why it's important to bring all of your trash with you when you leave the beach. That if you've gone and you've dug any holes to build sand castles or bury your friends or anything like that, fill that all in before you go. Because if sea turtles are trying to get out from those areas and they fall into those holes, they can't always get out. And that also leaves them in danger from other predators that are out there. But when, oh, what happened?
Sorry.
That's okay. So when we're looking at the adults there's also threats to them as well. So looking with the olive Ridleys, these are the smallest of the sea turtles. They're only grow to about 2 or 2.5 feet. They weigh about 100 pounds. So even though they're small, they're pretty hefty. The moms on this, they migrate thousands and thousands of miles to return to the beaches that they were born on to lay their eggs. And they lay about 100 eggs each time. But there's threats to the moms as well. It's not just the baby sea turtles that we need to focus on, because in those travels of that migration pattern for the moms, they can encounter different fishermen. They can become part of bycatch when they're stuck in nets. They can ingest plastics, which can mess up their internal structures and prevent them from being able to get the nutrition that they need. And then when they do come onto land, their nests and the turtles themselves are in threats, because some people do eat the turtles. So they'll be collected for meat, and the eggs are collected as well to be eaten. So those are just some of the threats that they have.
Next one.
Absolutely. So these are the green turtles. These are another that are being collected right now by the program in Nicaragua. These are bigger. These are among the largest of the sea turtles. They get up to 500 pounds, and they're about 5 feet. Now, these are endangered. Again, same types of threats from people when you're out with bycatch or fishing lines and ingesting plastic. But because of their size, they are actually a big food source for many people in some countries. So they are killed in order to be used as food. Their eggs are taken for different things. So there's a huge threat to them. So when we're creating these programs in order to conserve these species, it's important to really understand all the threats that are there. They have natural predators as well, but unfortunately humans seem to be the biggest threat for these species. And this is the hawksbill. The hawksbill sea turtle is actually considered a soft shell sea turtle. And these are about 7 feet. These are big, and they get up to 2,000 pounds. It's a pretty big turtle, huh? These actually are the deepest of our divers. So they can dive over 4,000 feet. And when they dive, they can stay down for over an hour. Some pretty impressive lung capacity there, because I know when I go diving without scuba gear, I certainly am not holding my breath for over an hour. I'm lucky if I'm holding my breath for over a minute. But despite their size, when they do come ashore, they actually lay a relatively small clutch of eggs. They only lay about 80 eggs each time that they nest. So again, it's something that, we really need to protect those nests. Now, being one of the soft shell sea turtles, if you look at that shell, it's really beautiful. So unfortunately, that is actually seen as something that would make a great souvenir item for some people. So the hawksbill is threatened with that, because they are taken in order to have that shell made as souvenirs and stuff. And this is the leatherback, which I think I actually just mixed those up. Sorry, I had that different. So the leatherback is your largest of your soft shells. They're the ones that dive deep. So I messed up on that. See, we all mess up sometimes. But again, these are sought after for their eggs and their meat, and they are definitely susceptible to entanglement and habitat loss. Because of their size, they really do get caught up in things a lot.
And they're world travelers, right? I mean,
yeah.
They're so big that they go all over the world, and they're very, very rare.
Yes. So they are critically endangered, and they're very, very beautiful species. But again, whenever you get something that is a large size like that, they are definitely sought after for their meat by some people. So it's important for people to understand that although these can be a food source, they shouldn't be. We need to get these populations back to a stable rate, because they are keystone species. As Fabien was mentioning before, they do keep our jellyfish populations under control. They do keep our sponges on the reefs under control, because we want those coral reefs to stay healthy. There are, rainforests of the sea. So many species are there that we need to not have those sponges overgrowing on them. And then this is our loggerhead. This is the largest of the hardshell turtles, and they are carnivores. So they are out there eating those jellyfish and the crabs and all that. And again, they are endangered. They're about 250 pounds each, so they're a good size as well. And again, one of their biggest concerns is from poaching and different predators that they have, humans being the worst of them.
Now, 250 pounds, I have an 8-year-old at home and she's about 50, 52 pounds. So that's 5 of my 8-year-olds. That weighs a lot. That's amazing. And I noticed, by the way, Liz, that the front flippers look like giant paddles versus the tortoise or the turtle.
Absolutely.
And they're very, very powerful. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I did notice, and I'll flip it to here. Actually, no, I'll leave it here so you can mention a little bit more about loggerheads, which I know since you're in Florida, you see a lot of loggerheads. But
we do.
One of the things that we did in El Salvador was tagging a green turtle, which is a big animal. And they were so powerful. Those front flippers are so powerful. You wanted to stay away from those front flippers because they would whack you. And believe me, that hurts a lot, especially when it's trying to get away from you because you're trying to put a tag in it so that you can track it. So pretty impressive animals.
Yeah.
Loggerheads are what? Are these the least endangered of the sea turtles?
I believe the least endangered actually are the greens right now.
The greens, okay. Yeah, these are amazing. So I don't know where you all are. You may be in landlocked states, but hopefully you'll get a chance to go visit the neighborhood where Liz is in Florida, or in general in the Caribbean, or somewhere else, maybe in Hawaii, or maybe you'll get a real chance to interact or see one of these animals live, whether it's in an aquarium or on the beach, or maybe you'll even go scuba diving with one day, because they are so cool. Anyway, I don't know, Liz, if you finished, but I hope you did. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yes. No, we're ready for questions.
Because I really love questions. And like I said in the beginning, and I'm not joking around about this, you guys are really my favorite team, my favorite group of human beings, because you have that energy, that unbridled enthusiasm, and the fact that nothing is impossible, which as adults, we sometimes use that as an excuse. Believe me, it's only an excuse. Nothing is impossible. This is my group of local heroes in El Salvador. They're now probably like teenagers. I've got a few more gray hairs than in that picture. But at the end of the day, in Nicaragua, it really is about families going and doing this restoration program and learning more about the symbiotic relationship between ocean health and us, human health. Because at the end of the day, as you probably have learned in school, I really hope you have, is there's no such thing as a healthy future without a healthy ocean. So we need to engage people everywhere, whether you're on the ocean front, like these amazing people in Nicaragua, or whether you are 1,000 miles away on a mountaintop eating snowballs, you're eating the ocean. The ocean connects us all, and a healthy ocean means a healthy future for all of us. Something that we as adults will be proud to give back to you. So there you go. That's my little soapbox speech. I love questions though. So I'll turn it back over to Tim.
All right, Fabien, Liz, thank you so much for all that great information. Fabien, I want to just start. We have a guest on our live stream as to what was up with that trick slide. We have.
All right, let's go back to that slide before I get rid of the slideshow. There we go. Liz, I won't tease the kids here, because you know more about turtles than I do, or I would assume most of these kids do. What is the trick in this slide, since we're talking about sea turtles?
I don't know. What do you think?
All right. Well, let me put our guests from our live stream audience. We've got fourth graders who are watching on the live stream. They think that it's possible that these are not real sea turtle babies. That's their guess. Maybe the kids are practicing handling these turtles so they can learn more about them.
Well, that's an interesting that is an interesting guess, but we have the young gentleman on our live stream. I can't see your name for some reason.
All
On
right,
my screen.
Joan, let's go to Joan. Yeah, let's ask Joan. Joan, you can go ahead and
Joan,
unmute
when you
yourself. Go ahead.
So how did you how did you get to know these people?
Ah, very good question. How did I get to know these people? Well, I go on a lot of expeditions, and an expedition is a trip, an organized trip with a bunch of people who go and study specific things in very far remote parts of the world, places that are very different from our own. This particular slide is a slide or a photo that I took in the Amazon River Basin. And these are young people about 1,500 miles upriver from the ocean. So that should be the answer right there as to this trick slide. These are freshwater turtles, not sea turtles. But my job is to do documentary films. And well, that's one of my jobs. And that's why I get to go to some of these really, really crazy remote places. Here, let me get rid of my share screen here so we can talk in person, virtually speaking anyway. There we go. All right. No, I don't want to share my screen. There it is. Escape. All right. I don't know if you can see me.
Yep, looks good.
All right, we're back. So if you look at my background, for example, we're diving in a place called Sipadan. Sipadan is in Malaysia. And in Malaysia, there's a lot of problems with overfishing and everything else. But Sipadan was deemed by my grandfather when he first went there as one of the 10 most beautiful places in the whole entire planet. And it became a marine protected area. And so I went there a few years ago, I think 2 years ago, to film this beautiful place. And one of the things that I noticed were there were so many sea turtles, and they were hawksbills and greens. They were everywhere. As a matter of fact, I don't know again if you can see it, but there was a sea turtle swimming by. And at the end of this, we'll have to see if someone can guess whether it was a male or female. But essentially, that's what I do, is I try and go out there and film and bring back stories of these amazing places to share with people like yourselves.
Great question, Joan. Thank you so much for asking it. And I don't know if
that's a question, it looks like.
Yeah, let's go. Let's see here. Let's go right over to Xavier. Xavier, you're unmuted. Go ahead, bud.
Can you unmute yourself? It's unmuted.
Oh, yep, sorry. Go ahead. We can hear you.
My question is, what are sea turtle shells made out of?
Ooh, that's a very, very good question, Xavier. Thank you for your patience, by the way. I know you've been raising your hand for a while. I'm going to pass that one over to Liz, because she's trying to escape all of this. And she is officially one of the best educators I've ever known. And I've known her for a few years now. We've had some great adventures together. And thanks to her, some of these programs are amazing. So Liz, can you answer that question from Xavier?
Sure, Xavier, and Fabien, thanks for that. Definitely far from being one of the best educators. But so their shells are a mixture of proteins and calcium, kind of like your bones are. So they're very strong, and they do grow with the sea turtle. So some of you may have seen other types of species that change shells, but sea turtles aren't, ones that change their shells. They grow with them throughout the years, and you can see the little plates that are on them as they expand each year.
All right, great question, Xavier. Thank you very much. Let's go to Mackenzie. Mackenzie, I see your hand up. If you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
My question is, what can a kid in Pennsylvania do to help the turtles?
Mackenzie, that's a great question. And whether it's turtles or anything else, of whether they're on an ocean front or a thousand miles away, as I was saying earlier. So for someone who may be far from the ocean, remember that our ocean, our planet, is a circulatory system, and rivers and streams and lakes all eventually end up in our ocean. So first and foremost, and a very easy way to help sea turtles and other sea life, is to try and not use things called single-use plastics. And that's water bottles and plastic bags and straws and all those things that are made of plastic, because eventually, unfortunately, a lot of that ends up in the ocean. And as you saw from one of the pictures we shared, the sea turtle was munching on a plastic bag because it thought it was a jellyfish. Now, there are a lot of other examples of things you can do, of course, or you and your parents and your community can do. And, oh, did we lose Liz?
Yeah, I'll look for her. She'll be back.
Okay, because I was going to pass it on over to Liz to give some other perspectives. But for example, you can obviously participate in sea turtle programs in person if you ever get a chance to. You can go to an aquarium that has sea turtle restoration programs in your neighborhood, and they'll help you with that. You can tell other people about sea turtles. And I'm going to pass it over to Liz, who may have some other foresight into things that you can do, even though you may not be on the beach or on the ocean front, what you can do for sea turtles to protect them. Liz?
So, Fabien, I'll be honest, my connection cut out for a bit, so he refers, and I'm not exactly sure everything you already told him, so sorry if I repeat anything that he just said. It'll just reinforce it for you. But probably the biggest thing that you can do is to become your own advocate, to make sure that for yourself and your friends and your family that you express to them the importance of preserving our marine ecosystems, because it truly is what helps to keep our planet alive. So everything that's happening out in the ocean, when we see things that are happening on the decline there, that's the biggest indicator of the health of our planet. So for you each at home, what I encourage you to do and task you to do is to become an ocean advocate, to learn everything you can about the ways that you can protect, even in your community. If you never go out to the ocean, just by informing others of the importance, like with the sea turtles. Many people look at the sea turtles and think, oh, they're really cute, and they are. They're adorable. But as keystone species, they have a big impact on the ecosystems. They help to keep those jellyfish populations under control. They help to, like we said before, keep the reef. And even when they're grazing in the seagrass beds are a very important community for the growth of juvenile fish. So all those, baby fish that need to grow up to be part of the bigger ecosystems and even food source for humans, they need that place to grow up in, where if the sea turtles aren't maintaining that seagrass bed to keep it habitable for those juvenile fish, then we don't have that. So it's all connected.
Great.
Yeah, and
wonderful question.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't like being stung by jellyfish. So the more they're kept under control, the better.
Great question, Mackenzie. Let's go to Devin. Devin, thank you for your patience. You can go ahead with your question.
Okay, so how do sea turtles find their way back to the beach they were born on?
Excellent question. Devin, that is an awesome question. And that's part of their radar system and what's built into their DNA. And again, I'm going to pass that over to Liz because I kind of know the answer, but she'll give you a much better answer than I could.
Well, actually, I'm not gonna be able to give you that, probably the same that you would, but so it's not completely understood exactly how they find their way back, but our planet does have kind of a system of magnets that helps them to have their own internal GPS. So just like with, navigation in your cars and on cell phones, we're able to connect and triangulate patterns and everything. They somehow do this internally, just based off of the different signals that they're getting from the Earth itself. They find their way back to these beaches in order to nest and continue the cycle.
You know what? Let me, there's one thing that just came to mind about Mackenzie's question. And that's, what can I do whether, if I'm far away from the ocean? Now, there's something that all of us benefit from, and something that when I was growing up, when I was your age, I didn't have. I know it's shocking, but it's these things, these little communication devices, whether it's iPads or cell phones or what have you, and your voice. The most important tool that we have today is being able to inform people, being able to empower people, being able to encourage your peers, your friends to do more to protect our ocean. And so your voice, whether it doesn't matter where you are on this planet, your voice and your thoughts are probably the most important thing that you have, that we all have, to be able to help protect our ocean. So whether it's signing petitions, whether it's going and telling the decision makers that you want sea turtle programs, that you want to protect the ocean, that you want to protect our planet, even if it's in your backyard, you know, your forests and your lakes, that is the most important thing you can do, is to make sure that you become part of the solution. You become the hero, right? And the leader in your community to help protect these places.
All right, fantastic. I see Joan's got her hand up again. Joan, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay. So what sea turtle do you work with the most, and what is a fun fact about that sea turtle?
Wow. Ooh, that's a difficult one. By default, because of where we work with these programs, we work with mostly with the turtles that come up, right? So the most numbers of turtles in El Salvador and Nicaragua, the green sea turtle is very abundant. We find them a lot there. The olive Ridley, we find some of. The leatherbacks, we find very, very, very few of. We have maybe a dozen nests a year, which is, to me, a little bit concerning, even though they don't nest necessarily just there. They nest all over the world, but we'd love to see more of them come back. And those are probably the most endangered sea turtles, except that we work also with one community of sea turtles that's been deemed the most endangered colony of sea turtles in the world, called the Eastern Pacific Hawksbill turtle. And they were thought to be extinct until we started working, we meaning the cumulative, all the NGOs here, working in a place that is bordering Nicaragua and El Salvador and Honduras, where this bay is sheltering the last remaining Eastern Pacific Hawksbill turtle colony. And there are maybe a total of 30,000 of them, of which half, of course, are female. So that sounds like a lot, but that's very, very few. And with the protection measures and with the studies, the science, and with the people in the field that are doing some of the restoration work, we're hoping that that colony of sea turtle will come back. So they're pretty neat animals. They're very skittish. They're very, very endangered, of course. And part of the reasons was for what Liz had said earlier, which is hawksbill turtles have this most beautiful shell. And for centuries, people have been using that shell for decorative items, for jewelry, for things nowadays that they sell to tourists, which is illegal in many cases. But if you ever see that, make sure that you don't buy sea turtle shell items. That will help alleviate the problem right there. So that's one fact. But I've got to say that I have yet to see in person a leatherback sea turtle in nature. I've seen them on videos, I've seen them all over the place, but I personally have not seen one swimming around free in the ocean. So I'm hoping to see one of those one day.
All right, great question. I want to get to some of our questions from the live stream, and there are a couple, and we'll get to as many as we can. I know that Miss Rosenberger's fourth grade students are wondering why it's important to involve women and girls in particular in Nicaragua to protect the sea turtles.
That's an excellent question. And that's something we didn't really go over in this particular presentation. But with our Nicaragua program, we specifically have something called a women empowerment program. And for me, and I think for all of us and our team, it's extraordinarily important to show social equality, social justice, and whether it's having a gender equality, whether it's having equality all throughout the different races and creeds and colors and backgrounds and cultures and all that. It doesn't matter where you come from, you're just as talented and just as capable of being part of these restoration activities. But what we see in science and what we see in a lot of these kinds of activities is a gender inequality. It's mostly men that participate in this. And so for us, it was very important to make it more balanced and fair, because quite honestly, women are just as capable of doing any and all of these activities, and just as intelligent and just as wanting to do a lot of these activities as men. In Nicaragua, we engaged a local community of single mothers, of mothers who are the main breadwinners in their homes, to be part of this program and to bring their children, in many cases it's their daughters, to be part of the program. And that allows for them to make an income, all while saving sea turtles. And that's very important for them because they've lost their husband for various factors. And so it's a one income household. And so they're some of the most disadvantaged family homes out there. And so we wanted to help them so that they could help the sea turtles. And what we found is that they do just as good of a job as a two-parent household or an all-male crew. The women are in our programs are doing just as good of a job as the men in our programs. So we're very happy to be able to offer that as part of the program in Nicaragua.
All right, wonderful. Thanks for that great question on the live stream. Joan, I'm going to come to you for the last question, but I want to take one more question from the live stream before we wrap things up today. A fourth grader is wondering, what were some challenges you faced when working on your sea turtle restoration projects? What are maybe some of the obstacles you had to overcome?
That's a really, really awesome question. There are a lot of challenges. Most importantly, there are two challenges that come to mind. One, the lack of education, lack of information that these people have. And one was typically expressed in that when local communities don't know much about sea turtles other than what they're used to seeing in their everyday lives, they'll think, for example, the fishermen of El Salvador and many other places thought that the sea turtles were just going somewhere else. And when we gave them an idea of the life cycle of a sea turtle and the behavior of sea turtles in terms of nesting, it became very apparent that when we take too many of the eggs for consumption, there aren't enough baby sea turtles going back into the ocean to keep the sea turtle populations up. And so when that aha moment came and they went, oh, okay, so what we thought originally was that they were just migrating somewhere else and nesting somewhere else isn't true. But the reality is that we're just taking too many sea turtle eggs. The second part of the problem was, how do we address the fundamental issue, which is they need to make a living. They need to be able to provide for their family. And the sea turtle egg collection was part of their income. So instead of throwing them in jail for doing something that is now illegal in many parts of the world, we need to provide them with the ability to make an income, all while saving the sea turtles. And in Nicaragua and El Salvador, it's very similar. They need to be able to compensate for that income. And so in El Salvador, we had training programs for alternate sources of income. So other cottage industries, making a living some other way, whether it's working in hospitality, becoming, tour guides, or whether it's craft industries, creating things that they could sell on the market to make as much, if not maybe even more money than selling baby sea turtle eggs. And all this is very empowering because now not only can they make money, so they don't have to worry about that as much anymore, but on top of which they're doing something good for the planet. And that's a feel good. That's something that fills your soul. And when you fill your soul and you become proud of what you do, you start passing on that excitement to your children, to your community, to the visitors. And that's really, really powerful. And we've seen that grow and grow and grow. And they become the managers of the program. They become the heroes, and we can step away. It's no longer us managing this. It's them managing their own ecosystem, which is the most important part of all of this. And so I don't know if Liz has another answer, but that for me is a very rewarding thing.
Definitely, just that's part of what I really like about the OLC programs the most, is the fact that we do have different cultures out there, and collecting sea turtle eggs for many of them is something that's been done for generations and generations. And rather than just going in and saying, hey, don't do this, it's wrong, it's hurting the ecosystem, providing alternate sources of income for them, being able to educate different cultures of different ways to look at it and understand it is so important, because we all know there's things in life that we're used to doing, and suddenly someone comes along and says, oh, you can't do that anymore. Well, why? So for them to be able to understand exactly why and see, okay, well, it's not, as Fabien said, that they're migrating somewhere else, but that it's their own actions that are preventing them from coming back. And then giving them an alternate venue in order to be able to still support their family, because we all need to be able to support ourselves and our family. So that is definitely one of the most rewarding parts, is seeing local communities become empowered to protect their local ecosystems while still sustaining themselves and thriving with it.
All right, thank you both. What a great question from our live stream audience. I have one real quick answer that I think has a quickish answer, and then Joan, we'll finish with you. You're being so patient, thank you. Alex online would like to know, generally speaking, how many different kinds of turtles are there in the world? When we talk about turtles, we talked about sea turtles today. Is it just like six? Was it 6 sea turtles, types of sea turtles total? How many types of turtles in the world are there?
Liz, I'm going to let you answer that, since I've been very verbose.
Turtles, which would be freshwater turtles, sea turtles, and tortoises. I'll be honest, I don't know. But if we're talking about sea turtles, with sea turtles, there are 7 species.
Okay, fantastic.
Isn't that what Google's for?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
there's 7, how many total.
There's 7 species, and you can go back and see some great facts about each of those from when Elisabeth presented.
And honestly, as we explore these places, whether it's on land or in the ocean, sometimes we discover new species. So, I used to say there are 360 species of shark. Now we're saying 400 species of shark. It's the same with turtles in general. Land turtles, tortoises. Land turtles, tortoises are very similar. Freshwater and sea turtles. Sea turtles, I think we're pretty clear on the fact that there are 7. Okay. But in terms of freshwater and land turtles, there could be more.
All right, Alex, thank you so much for your question. Joan, we're coming to you. It's your turn. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. What is the hardest part of a sea turtle's life?
Wow. I'll give you my opinion, and my opinion may mean nothing, but I believe that from the moment they're born, actually, even getting out of the nest is a really difficult endeavor. But getting out of the nest and making it to the ocean is very, very risky, because there are a lot of predators that pick them off. And if not to scare anyone today, we're not going to show that video, but just getting to the ocean, between the birds and the land predators, snakes, lizards, rats, et cetera, that a lot of them get eaten. Once you're in the ocean, you have to go from the beach all the way out to open water, and there are a lot of fish and other predators that pick them off on the way. So I think that for the sea turtle in general to get from the nest to a semblance of adolescence, right? Where they're a certain size where they can start fending for themselves and diving into the reefs and everything else. It's probably the hardest part of their lives, but it really depends on the situation. I would imagine in places where there are lots of human beings and lots of boat traffic and everything else, then monofilament line and plastic bags and boat strikes and all those things are extraordinarily difficult for the adult sea turtle to deal with. And we have friends over at the Loggerhead Marine Life Center over in Juneau, Florida, that deal with a lot of the problems that those adult sea turtles face day to day down in that part of the area. So they may have a different answer, but I think it's getting to that point where you become a teenager turtle, teenage mutant turtle, that is probably the most difficult. Liz, do you have any other thoughts on that?
The only thing to add to that, when we're talking about the fact that the most difficult part is getting from the nest, from hatching out to the water, a common thing might be to think, well, why don't we just help them? Why don't we just take them from the nest and put them into the water? But the reason for that is right when they hatch, they actually need to build up the muscles in order to make that long trek. Remember that sea turtles, once they reach the ocean, they're swimming for the majority of their life. Some do kind of settle down within sponges or in seagrass beds for a little rest, but they're swimming pretty much 24/7 all the time. So that trek from the nest out to the ocean, battling through whatever predators or anything that they encounter, as well as the waves, as in that video that was shown earlier, can push them back and put them back out. That's an integral part of their life for them to build up their muscles in order to now survive out in the ocean and be able to swim on their journey as they migrate around.
Yeah, I mean, the male sea turtles, by and large, will never go back on the beach, with one exception in Hawaii. But the female turtles come back every other year, on average, to nest. So they need to be able to have that muscle memory and that pre-programmed memory of where they were originally from to come back. Sea turtles are amazing creatures. They really are. I mean, when you start digging into more of the information about sea turtles, it really becomes quite a unique and special species that's been around since before the dinosaurs. So very exciting stuff. They are dinosaurs.
Joan, I want to thank you for that great question. Mackenzie, Xavier, Devin, Joan, you've been such a great online audience today. I really appreciate your fantastic questions. To all
Male
of
or female? Male or female?
Oh, there it is.
There it went. That happened to be a male turtle for those of you who that was a 50-50 shot. So
well, I'm glad we got to see it before we said goodbye. Fabien, Elisabeth, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so informative and we've learned so much about sea turtles and what we can do to help preserve sea turtles and help protect our oceans. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise and time with us. Thank you so much to our entire YouTube live stream audience for joining us today. We're just about halfway through Oceans Week today on Wednesday. And if you love this live stream, there's so much more to come. Later today, we're going to be diving with sperm whales off Dominica. And tomorrow, we're going to be exploring dead zones in the Chesapeake Bay and learning all about adorable sea otters. So check out the complete listing of upcoming Oceans Week events at athome.reachtheworld.org. And before we say goodbye, or as we say goodbye, I want to invite all of our students on camera to unmute yourselves. And we'll say on the count of 3, we'll give a good goodbye, a big goodbye, and thank you to Fabien and Elisabeth. Looks like we're all ready to go. All right, 1, 2, 3. Goodbye.
Bye.
Have a great summer, guys.
Thank
you so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.